Welcome to Familiar Territory, an anime podcast hosted by two white dudes who've been friends for over 15 years. Here we talk about the history and influence of anime, as well as review anime new and old. So grab your talking cap and transform into some comfy clothes as we step into a familiar territory. My name is Grant.
And I'm Brantley. Heads up, spoilers on the way. Check the description, see if you're safe to listen. On today's episode of the podcast, Grant takes another step on his quest to consume all media that was ever recommended with the words, "If you liked Madoka, then you're gonna like this."
That's true.
we finished Princess Tutu. We did it. We got through it. I mean, I saw it again, and Grant saw it for the first time through to the end.
I did. I enjoyed it. I'm glad that I took that test and I got Fakir, because I didn't like Fakir, and now I do like Fakir. So, You know what? All's well that ends well.
Yeah.
So Tutu, I get why people are like, well, if you like Madoka, it's not like as dark and depressing, but it still, has like some pretty good messages of hope and love and ducks, which is an important aspect of both Madoka and Tutu. But it got weird. We finished the first half and we talked about it in our preview a couple episodes back. And Brantley said it was gonna get weird, and it did. And it did it in a good way. Do you wanna talk about what do you think the biggest difference between like the first half of the show and the second half of the show is?
That's a good question. I want to say that it breaks formula, but the first season already did that.
Mm-hmm.
So wow, that's really tough. How about we recount the plot first?
Okay.
And then we can dissect it a little further. So, the plot of this season has less to do with recovering Muto's heart shards, but still ends up there. It's just that there's more sort of space in between. So Fakir's adoptive dad, Karan, right?
Yeah, probably.
Essentially sort of revives Edru into a new baby form, Uzura. We go through essentially a few more steps of characters realizing they're not who they think they are, so we get introduced to one other new character in like the primary cast, which is the actual Raven, because we find out Rue is not the Raven, she's the Raven's daughter. And so Rue, or Kurere, whichever you want to, identify her as, she's actually in an abusive, sort of parental situation with the Raven, who is basically forcing her to do all this stuff to the prince, and gaslighting her into the situation to say, we're the only ones who could ever love something as ugly as you, so go do my bidding, basically. And that's the only way you'll get love.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where you start to see it and you're like, yikes, man. This it's dark. Whoa! Mm-hmm. Did they do something dark without it being shitty like Elena? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Watch our previous episode if you want that whole stink.
But it's a good way to do the whole. I think it's a good way for it to be dark, because like it's there. It's not like it's shied away from, but it's not surface level. And I think that you watch the first half of Tutu, and it's weird. And there's some implications of dark stuff, but it's pretty lighthearted. I think the thing about Season 2 compared to Season 1 is that when you start to dive into the background of these characters, you see a little bit more of a human element to them, even though it's a very fairy tale, whimsical type of story.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I
continue.
literally don't know what you mean by that. Explain.
Oh, I'm saying like in the first
There's
half,
an element to them.
what I'm saying is like
oxygen, carbon,
we shut up.
nitrogen. Sorry.
What I was saying is it's like in the first half, Fakir is sword guy. Yuto is wispy boy, and then like Duck is just like, or Ahiru's just like, I'm a duck. And then Rue is like, I'm trying to steal your man and something's going on. But you don't get to see like who they are as people outside of like maybe the last couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, Fakir likes Muto, and he's trying to protect him. And, Muto doesn't have emotions. And, Rue is trying to throw a wrench in all the plans. But I think in Season 2, when they start to, like, oh, yeah, this is why Fakir is kind of like this. Or this is why Rue is kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it a lot more human. It makes it have more of a realistic kind of development instead of it just being, well, this is the way it is. And I think that's what I mean.
Yeah, we get to the characters' roots more.
Yeah.
Yeah. This also, I'm realizing, follows in suit with the anime style of, like, Season 1 is like, your opener is like cool, like pop J-rock, and then your second season is like brooding, angsty, like theme song. Instead, it's that, like, this is your angsty season for sure. Ahiru is more like confused and unsure of what she's doing. Fakir is basically like constantly battling with, like, what do I even do? He goes through a whole role reversal. Rue and Muto also go through role reversals as Muto becomes like a prick basically, as he's been tainted by Raven's blood. So yeah, everybody is kind of in this like flipped state. It's interesting. This show makes me think things. This show makes me interpret things. But I have a feeling we should maybe save that for the back end of the podcast, because
yeah,
I have too much to say that I don't know how even substantial it is. So, God, where were we? Plot synopsis. Let's make this really quick. You know what? I don't feel like going chronological with this.
We don't need to. I mean, as much as you say that there's not a lot of like Monster of the Week episodes, or it's less about them, they're still there.
They're scattered in between, yeah.
So we'll probably mention the ones that kind of stick out to us later. Mm-hmm. But I think we should focus on it. So what you said, compared
to the last couple episodes of the season, much like Season 1, it's like there's like 10 times as much stuff happening in that part than there was even before that. And there wasn't even a lack of things happening before. It's just like twist thing. It's like coming at you. It is truly like a crescendo for the series. Yeah. So, big things to note. Rue is not the daughter of the Raven, but is essentially abused into thinking she is. Was stolen as a child to essentially brainwash her. Muto was tainted with the Raven's blood at the end of Season 1, and so now he's going into like fucked up and evil moments every now and then. And so he's kind of flipping back and forth between gentle, caring martyr Muto and hey, if there are two guys on the moon and one of them killed the other with a rock, would that be fucked up or what, Muto? And so they're just sort of dancing back and forth between that. Fakir keeps being told, quit using your sword, don't be a knight. And so he has to find some other way to help. And so he essentially, with Ahiru, discovers that the town is encapsulated in a story, and eventually comes to find out that he has Drosselmeyer's blood in him, in terms of, his family. He has a sad backstory where he wrote a story that ended up getting his parents killed because his story came to life, much like Drosselmeyer is able to do. And so now he's on a new path to essentially become a writer and change the fiction of the world he's embodied in.
Dude, this show's fucking wild.
Yeah, I know.
Like when you back up and you start explaining to it, because you also forgot to mention that Drosselmeyer is actually dead.
Oh yeah, we've known that, though.
Right. But he's using a machine to continuously write the story that he set up so that when people killed him, the story wouldn't end.
Yeah, they cut off his hands. He used his blood to write one last story, which was that there was a machine that would write stories for him. Okay, let me finish the last little bits here. Ahiru's still dancing, but it's more sad now. And then Muto actually transforms into a crow or a raven. You know, they're both the same thing here. And so they have to make one last ditch effort to essentially restore his heart. That requires essentially revealing the secret that yes, this town is encapsulated within a story, and that it's bound by that, and essentially the last heart shards are in the gates of the town. And so they have to take the big final risk, which is to restore Muto's heart, which makes it vulnerable to be stolen by the Raven, but through the power of everyone working together in Ahiru's dance, they are able to defeat the Raven once and for all. Ahiru must give up her ability to be Princess Tutu to give the last of Muto's heart shards, which was her necklace. And then essentially they escape the loop, sort of. The prince and the princess, which is Muto and Ru, get to live their happily ever after, and Fakir and Ahiru chill out as besties for, whatever happens after that.
Yeah. I definitely thought the second half was more interesting. There was a couple times during the first half where I was just kind of bored with what was going on, but I was pretty hooked for the most part of the second half. It got weird, and it stayed weird. I loved it.
It's rare that you can find a show like this, and not only see that it's executed pretty well, but also end it on a note such as like, oh God, it's metafiction.
Yeah, and
it's good metafiction, in my opinion.
I think the problem when writing metafiction is if you are out to write just a metafiction story, you are doomed to kind of fall into that like hole of ha, it's metafiction. Ooh, I did it. You were tricked.
Yeah.
But I think Princess Tutu was magical girl fairy tale story first, metafiction second.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that allowed it to be a lot more impactful.
Yeah.
I
do think that the metafiction has something to say, but the metafiction does not have to be paid attention to greatly to still get something out of the plot and the characters and the setting. So I think it's a great final thematic layer, but it is not such a hard imposed element that requires your attention necessarily, It's not at the level of fourth wall breaking where it's like, haha, in your face. And it's also not like, now if you don't understand this, you don't understand the story, because there's still enough fantasy in it. It's like, well, how come Drosselmeyer gets to go through like a coffin door to see people every now and then? And he says there's like a certain time limit to it, but what is that? I don't know. It's not going to be answered for you. It's okay. But because at the end of the day, the metafiction extends all the way out of the story, as Drosselmeyer ends on saying, wait, what if I'm in a story? And that's your answer. You don't have to have an answer to the fantasy of the story, because it's still a story too. And I like that. Not everyone will, but I do.
Yeah, I did too. I'm not the biggest fan of metafiction, but I am a big fan of Princess Tutu.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked how the show did it. They didn't have the main. They had the main character sacrifice their future with the main romantic interest, so that they can be happy. Yuto and Tutu don't get together, and that's a pretty big trope buster. You know, like there's not a lot of shows that you actually get to see the main character not get with the main romantic interest so explicitly. There's a couple anime that are like, who will they, won't they? Who really are they with? But this one's like, yeah, Ahiru's a duck forever now, and Rue and Muto are happy together. And it's good. It's good. It's sad. It's, kind of, I was I'm not upset about it, but I was, I gotta stop saying, Jesus. I was like, oh, okay, poor Ahiru. I wanted her to have a happy ending, and like her ending isn't not happy. It's just not the happy ending.
Yeah, it is a net gain over what Drosselmeyer wanted, which was for everyone to suffer in tragedy. But it still has impact. On one hand, they pulled it off. I actually, Rue gets redeemed in a way that doesn't feel like ham-fisted. I was just as happy for Rue to essentially be able to find her prince.
Yeah.
And all the same, I'm happy to see that Ahiru has a newfound friendship with Fakir, and in turn, that Fakir has essentially solidarity with Ahiru. I think that was really cool. I do think that, like, the way I interpret the story, Ahiru and Fakir work really well together in a different way than Rue and Muto do for their purposes in the story and the way that it, like, sort of operates. To keep it brief, I might go into more later if you'll allow me to, but
no,
essentially that's the right decision. Fakir and Ahiru are the change makers, but Rue and Muto are the main characters. In the story they're living in, it's not up to Muto and Rue to change the story, because the whole purpose is for them to get their happy ending within that story. So it's kind of like, in a way, when like how do I put this? When someone is anxious about doing something, so you, as having no stakes in it, will do it for them. So it's like, hey, I really want to tell that person they're sitting in my seat, and you're like, hey, I think someone else sits there. You should get up. I think that's what Fakir and Ahiru are doing on behalf of the story. It's like, everybody, we need to straighten this shit out, because these people have fucking fantasy to fulfill, and so they'll put themselves in the line for that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a good development.
Yeah, I do want to restate too, from our first episode, we mentioned, like, this does a pretty good job of, like, riding the line between shoujo and shonen, and I think that maintains up until the end, or maybe even gets better at it. I don't know how they do it. I don't think I've ever seen another show that gets quite this close. All the other examples I can think of usually end up tilting too close into shonen range. But they did it, and I feel like that's worth a lot of points for me. Not only for novelty, but for execution. I still kind of resent that they have the weird shit in there. Stuff that makes me uncomfortable. The transformation shows too much detail on Ahiru's chest, and it's like, you don't need that. Neko Sensei's marriage jokes are still there up until, like, the very end.
Jesus, they're so bad, and, like, they were not funny in the first place, and they don't stop.
And if you cut those things out, the show wouldn't change, right? And that's why I kind of resent that they're there, because otherwise, this is so close to just, like, maxing out on my charts for, like, what a show is capable of. I even, like, it's like you get to have those, like, one-on-one moments with Neko Sensei where he starts to talk some sense, and it's like, God, I wish they let him be a real character instead of instead of letting this, like, joke really that doesn't really fit here. stuffing that in.
Absolutely. And they're so bad at it. He'll talk and he'll make sense. There's a part where he talks to Ahiru and it's like fairly sweet, and he's talking about what does she actually want, and it was a very good talk. Basically, he's making sure that, hey, are you sure you want to dance? What do you really want? And it's a good conversation. It's a good character building moment for Ahiru, and then it ends with a marriage joke, and you're like, God fucking damn it.
Yeah. I think those are the things that hold this show back. Nothing else in particular besides like those out of place like gags or just kind of like inappropriate visualizations and things. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to categorize, but yeah, still impressive in my eyes.
There is another character that we haven't mentioned who's almost the main character. I mean, we might have mentioned him once, but we didn't really talk too much about Ator.
Oh yeah. So
Ator is tangentially related to Fakir, like through some relation to Drosselmeyer. He's aware of Drosselmeyer's effect on the city. He knows that he's up to something. He knows that Drosselmeyer can write stories. He thinks that he has that ability because he has the blood. But during his his research on the lineage, he finds out that Fakir is actually closer to being related to Drosselmeyer than he is. Ator cannot actually affect the story. So he kind of works with Fakir to do so. He kind of starts out as like an antagonist, sort of trying to force Fakir into the Drosselmeyer role instead of like the anti-Drosselmeyer role. But he doesn't really flip the script. He stays on track, but he makes sure that Fakir knows his role. And I think he's a good character. And so he doesn't appear till he appears fairly early, kind of in and out of the show, getting pissed at Fakir and Ahiru for talking in the library. But he's really paying attention to them. He's good.
Yeah. That's something we noticed on this watch, is that there are recurring characters that they slip in. So, like, in the background, Atur will walk, like, past Fakir, and he'll give him, like, a side-eye, and they're not in the library or anything.
If you're not paying attention, you wouldn't notice it.
Yep.
It's never brought up. It's never talked about. It's really good.
Yeah, I didn't notice it the first time I watched it. The same thing with the I forget their name, but it's the book club.
Yeah, the ones that want to they hate Drosselmeyer. They're the ones that cut off his hands, and they want to cut off Fakir's hands too because they don't want him manipulating the story.
Fuck your hands.
Yeah. But they're like in the background, and it's creepy because they're wearing these hoods and they're like looking through the window. But once again, they don't draw attention to it, so it's very unnerving.
Yeah, sometimes they'll do a piano sting, like ring, but like other times they just like they'll just move through and they will not make a cue for it at all. It's like, oh, you know, it's cool.
Yes. So we mentioned that there's some episodes during this season that aren't as good as the other ones. The side characters might not be super interesting, or they're just kind of what feels like filler to kind of go back to that Monster of the Week thing. But there are a couple standout episodes. There's the one with the one girl, the garden girl, Freya. Where they're trying to look for a partner for Yuto to dance along with, and she has some she's not super interesting outside of her being a fun character to follow around. She's a little bit older, and there's some really good friendship dialogue between her and Ahiru, but it doesn't go anywhere past this episode. I think that's the thing about this show, is that they'll bring in very good side characters for one episode and they'll drop them. Like, where the fuck was Anteater-chan this entire time? She shows up and then disappears. We didn't get to see the end of her arc. Does she learn to love herself? She's not even in the background. I digress. But the real important character that they introduce and never do anything with is Fumio. But before we talk about Fumio, because he's going to be the longest one, I do want to talk about the Midsummer's Night's Dream episode.
Yeah.
Where there's an upper class girl that dresses as Bottom from Midsummer's Night's Dream. She's super sweet and she likes a sculptor, and they both like each other, and they're both trying to find the best way to confess their love to each other. And of course the Raven tries to possess her, blah blah blah. Princess Tutu saves them, and then when they get together they both have like these art pieces for each other, and it's very, very sweet. And I really liked that. I liked that episode a lot, and her whole Midsummer's Night's Dream is my favorite Shakespeare play because it's goofy, and it's some of the jokes are they still hit in the modern day. So I really liked it. But back to Fumio. Do you want to talk about Fumio?
Yeah, Fumio is great. Fumio is
I thought you were done.
I mean, kind of. Like, basically, Fumio is like the combo breaker of this show. But it also works in the pacing. So Fumio is someone who cannot be conquered by Ru nor Ahiru. When Ru is trying to take a heart for the Raven to consume, and Ahiru is attempting to, locate heart shards to return back to Muto, they essentially cross paths on Fumio, a member of the probationary class who just loves to do this interpretive dance using a lot of mimes. Very much an eccentric personality. And he's also full of himself, like full on narcissist, but in like a special kind of like princely martyrdom kind of way. He's almost like a caricature of Muto, because
100%.
The whole thing with Muto is like, well, Muto is the prince who will protect everyone by sacrificing himself to fight the Raven. He'll give up his heart to the Raven for everyone else's sake. Here's Fumio, who's like, I'm so lovable that I couldn't possibly give myself over to one person, and therefore he's just impervious to the charms of either Kurere or Princess Tutu.
He does the whole when in this season, when they're gonna get their like hearts taken by the crow, they get raised up by these crow actors wearing these they are just crows. And he does the whole thing. He gets all dramatic, and then Ahiru does the dance with me, and he's just like, nah, I can't be loved by one woman. I need to be loved by all women. Sorry, ladies. And then they
just let him down. Yeah. Or no, does he get up? Does he get hit?
No, he gets hit afterwards.
Okay. They have a running of the bulls thing.
Yeah. It's a very weird episode, but it's like the show is parodying itself. And it doesn't linger on it too long. You get that episode and it's done, but boy, is it one of those episodes that sticks out.
It's visual and character gags that actually really work. Like legitimately laugh out loud stuff. It's very unique, like he has his own visual flair where he's got the rose petal things and the running of the bulls, and that essentially he'll get hit, or and then carried off, in a huff or whatever. But then also it works in the pacing of the plot, because this is like the crucial moment where Kurere is trying to prove that she can get a heart for the Raven. And it's kind of like do or die for her. And of course she gets paired off with none other than Fumio. And that's kind of then what sort of it's the final straw to be like, what am I doing? And it leads to like a transformation in her character, basically. So it still fits, and it's goofy, it's maxing it out both ways, and it's just great. It's excellent.
To me, this is kind of like one of those episodes where people can point to it and be like, they know. The people that wrote this know how to write a good show. Mm-hmm. Which is weird because it's so batshit silly.
Mm-hmm. And there's no real precedent for this either. Like, there are magical girl shows, but I don't know of any off the top of my head that are this focused on ballet, and stick to it, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, they start to repeat things a little more in this season where, you know, the procedure is always the same. Either Muto or Kurere will essentially take a stance, which is really cool, and they'll like flap out their raven wings, and it'll lift the other person up in a dead drop, sort of, and they'll be entranced by the idea that they can, you know, just accept someone's love because they'll take anything rather than the anxiety of not knowing or the anxiety of not finding their place. But it still works because it's so effective as a visual motif and as just like a dramatic piece of the story. It's just really cool. I don't know. You know, it's... I like it.
One of the things that I realized while watching the show is I kind of wish they would just reboot it. Mm-hmm. Not that the show is bad. I just wish that we could see some of... Because the scenes are really good, but the budget for the show, it's fine. But it's not... You know, it was 2002. Computer animation was starting to become a thing. But it wasn't as accessible, so the frames are a little low. And I just kind of wish that we could see it with much more fluid animation. But yeah, I enjoy it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd almost say Muto is a new character in this season because he goes into bastard mode.
I love the concept of bastard mode. I wish that more anime characters had bastard mode, because they're either always in bastard mode or never in bastard mode. And I think there should be just at least an arc for almost every character where they are just bastard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are some really great staged moments, especially between like Fakir and Muto, where he'll turn bastard mode in the middle of a conversation, and it's just so good. They'll play with it very carefully, where like you know, he'll turn away nervously from Fakir, and like his eyes were orange when you last saw them, but then Fakir will try to like get closer to him, and then realize his eyes have gone like that reddish pinkish color instead, and then he'll pull out some fucking like one-hit kill one-liner, and just like eviscerate Fakir as a character. Oh my god, his insult game is on point, and it's just wonderful to listen to and see play out. Where Kurere was in the previous season kind of like the shit starter, that's what Muto becomes. And after seeing him basically not be a character for a good stretch of the show, it's really fun to see him oscillate on that. Mm-hmm. He's going from like, you know, a gentle, wafy boy to like bastard child. Drosselmeyer, you get more of him in this season, and obviously his plans become clear and everything. What do you feel about him now that you've seen a number of magical girl shows involving like a puppet master, basically, and there's like that underlying deception? How do you feel like Drosselmeyer stacks up?
I kind of like that he's pretty incompetent. like he's not incompetent. His plans are unfolding, but the fact that there are multiple times where he's like, ah, shit, what the fuck? Stop that. No. Uh-huh. He's a weirdly, he's the creepiest looking puppet master, but he's the least threatening. Mm-hmm. And even when he fails, he's like, well, fuck that.
Yeah, in the
he
first season when Ahiru throws her pendant in the water, he's just like, "Oh no," and then just goes into the shadows.
Yeah, I like his incompetence and how he just did not know how to have teenage children fulfill his dark desire to have a dark fantasy story.
Mhm.
He's just like, oh fuck, I didn't expect teenagers to be impulsive and stupid. And it's great. I love it. I kind of like him as less of an antagonist and more of just kind of like he's more of a gag, but he's still kind of a dick.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. He is on like the puppet master spectrum. He leads more towards like mischief maker.
Yeah.
Like he's still absolutely trying to make people suffer, but he doesn't only enjoy suffering. It's just what he enjoys most. Because he feels like that's what makes a good story. He literally doesn't see them as people. He sees them as characters. So he's like,
Right.
"What are you doing? Like, go back to doing what I told you to do." Because that's how the story gets the most impact. And so when he doesn't respect the characters and they fight back, then he has to sort of come to terms with that, or otherwise just kind of ignore it, and be that like blasé attitude. So, yeah, it's interesting.
It is interesting. I enjoyed it. Let's talk a little bit about Fakir.
Yeah. Okay. When did you officially turn around on Fakir? If not in this season, then when?
We actually haven't talked too much about this character, but Uzura.
Yeah.
I think the way that he talks and acts around Uzura, and he kind of softens up a little bit. It's like he went from bastard mode to just a little soft.
Mhm.
And I think it comes from the way he talks to Azura, and also he seems to be a little bit more. Once he's on board with Ahiru's plan, I enjoy him a lot more. His classic early 2000s emo phase
Mhm.
feels more justified when you start to understand who he is.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, I get why he's a little bit of an emo. I get his sadness. And then when he starts being sweet to everyone, and everyone thinks he's a bastard, he becomes way more interesting.
Mhm.
I like his arc about not really wanting to mess with fate, but also wanting to help Muto. I like him and Ator's chemistry.
Their dynamic's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that a few times. Maybe that's an understatement. In anime where it's like the person who has the natural born talent or the bloodline versus the studious will to develop talent, and like how those butt heads. And I think they work good as a tag team. Most often it's just competitive, and that's what it starts as. Essentially, it's like Autor sort of pulling power moves on Fakir, where it's like, oh, you didn't even know you've got Drosselmeyer's blood. Here, check out my family map. Look at that, it's my family tree. Check out, I'm right here. I'm off on this tangent. And he's basically like waxing at him. But then Fakir's the one who's able to make it happen, and so Autor finds purpose in like protecting and like supporting him, and I think it really works. Yeah. I also just absolutely love that Fakir is a complex character, but not just in the plot sense of like he's got a lot of baggage. I just think that he has some really fun like emotional states that gel well together but are also pretty varied. You know that like that internet meme that's like the matrix of boxes where it's like you fill it in and it's cross-referencing. It's like edgy, depressed dumbass on like the columns or the rows, and then the columns are like bitch, thought, bastard. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
Fakir fills every one of those boxes in every combination.
He's our favorite bitch thought bastard.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, he is. It's good. Yeah.
And like all the characters have a little bit of that, like Muto's getting thoughty, and whatnot, but Fakir is the one who, like, absolutely, without question, is checking all of those boxes. It's so fun. Man. Yeah. As much as I don't care that much for Uzura, I could agree that she's a turning point. Um she is where he has to essentially come to terms with the fact he's going to work with Ahiru, because
Yes.
Uzura's too interested in Ahiru, and he's taking care of Uzura, for essentially saving his life as Ediru. So, all right, here's where it comes to an action, and it develops really well from there. I don't ship Ahiru and Fakir together, but I 100% understand everybody who does.
The way I look at it, I think they're better as friends. I
Mhm.
don't think there's too much of a romantic thing going on. I think it's more of just a very strong friendship. And
Mhm.
I dig that they end it with that too.
Yep. Yep.
The pose, the ending shot of him on the dock riding with Ahiru as a duck just swimming around
Mhm.
is such a good like scene.
Yeah.
It's relaxing, it's a little sad, but overall it's like a calming visual. And it's good. And I think it's a good ending to their friendship. Or not ending, but an ending for us to see.
Yeah, I feel like you couldn't end it better than that. I like the juxtaposition too, where in that ending sequence, uh, Muto and Rue are shown as the prince and princess, against like a very, like, obvious, like, picture book backdrop,
Mm-hmm.
um, where it looks like the illustration on, like, the front of a book or something. It's like it's clearly not in the world, right? They're like pasted on top of a picture. Um, and that makes sense to them as storybook characters. And then we see Fakir and Ahiru, and they're just still in the real fictional world of Gold Crown Town on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what separates them, and it's just beautiful. I think about that little pond scene so often. It just it's a nice little, like, desktop wallpaper that sits in my brain. It's my brain screensaver at certain points in my life. That's what it is.
Um. So yeah, do we want to? Since we're starting to talk a little bit about the reality versus not reality of Golden Crown Town,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to mention they did this. They did explain why some animals were people, and
Yeah.
I was so happy about it. I was fucking just ecstatic.
Yeah.
Um. So there was the question that I always had is why is Ahiru a duck that can't talk or do ballet when we clearly see birds in the theater class? I looked it up. Well, then I didn't look it up. I actually found the Princess Tutu website. And on March 18th of 2019, there was a small 5 question interview in one of the song collections, and one of the texts was by Ikuko Ito, who is
Yeah.
the character designer. We talked
And
a
the
little
and
bit
the concept creator, yeah.
yeah, we talked about them in our last episode. But they're the character designer. They work on so much. Like they are Sailor Moon, Somali and the Forest Spirit, which is a pretty good one. They're still working.
Mhm.
I mean, she's still working. I didn't know her gender.
Mhm.
But she mentions in the interview, she's like, Duck and Ahiru and Rue are 14 years old. Fakir and Muto are 15 years old. There's no birthday set for these characters. Ducks are birds, and I didn't dare to clarify how they were born and arrived at Golden Crown Town. She's just like, fuck if I know. She's a little bit clear on when the story takes place. The age of the stage is a little earlier than the present, so I'm guessing like early 1900s.
Mhm.
But she specifically mentioned she thought it would be fun to have people imagine what the year was, which is why she kind of made it vague and
Mm.
included weird stuff So that's fun.
It was really weird when Ahiru just pulled out a pair of AirPods.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, especially because this was in 2002 and Bluetooth technology had not reached that yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A little bizarre. But she mentions that she wanted it to be a fluffy fairy tale and then deciding on a set timeline, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
You
remember when Neko Sensei was like, yeah, I'm gonna go down to the pizza place. Just kidding. I'm gonna get my Grubhub account up and I'm gonna call in. They're gonna deliver it to me. That was pretty sweet. Really just kind of throw you out of it, you know?
Yeah, it was weird. It was a pretty intense product placement, and it just made me think of Code Geass legitimately having a Pizza Hut product placement, which I don't want to get into right now.
I thought you were gonna bring up Geass to assume that like we're using a Geass on our audience right now to make them believe that this is real.
No, Geass has Pizza Hut placement.
Yeah.
So some more questions. The other questions that they asked, just so we can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Karuwada, who is the music director, specifically chose classical melodies that had mysterious atmospheres. He said it was also fun to think about how to make the wedding march funny for the cat teacher. Fuck you, Karuwada. Fuck you.
Hey, it wasn't his fault that they wrote that in there. He's not the writer. The music is fun. The joke is not.
And then the last question that was asked on this CD was, the sound of swans and crows when the prince's sword breaks is the sound of pigeons. Is there any reason? And Juichi Sato, who's the general director, was just like, that's what there's no material for crows and swans to fly away, so we just used pigeons.
Yeah.
Thought that's a fun little trivia fact.
Yeah.
I don't remember, who did we talk about in terms of who directed and made this show in our last episode?
It was Ikako Ito.
It was just
we just talked about her as far as I remember. I don't know if we went with anyone else.
Cool, because holy shit, did this show have a pretty good director crew. The general director was Juichi Sato, who has worked on he a lot of the Sailor Moon crew was here. He was the director for Sailor Moon and Sailor Moon R, but he was also the storyboard for your favorite anime, Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Wow.
And he was the general director for End of Evangelion. The storyboard director, I mean.
Huh.
And he is the storyboard director for the Rebuild, one of the Rebuild movies.
Mm-hmm.
He is the storyboard. He's the series director for the new Precure. You know, this guy's like on it. He's 60. He has been in the game since 89. It's since 81. So wow. He's gone from like Mobile Suit Gundam. So he did Sergeant Frog. He's big, and I think that's a neat little thing.
That's
but
rad.
the thing that's really neat is Takeo Agiwara, who is the cinematographer for this show, is also pretty prevalent. She is, or he, I don't know. They are the cinematographer for like Sailor Moon Crystal, Penguin Drum, but they're also the cinematographer and camera designer for like Tales of Vesperia and Bayonetta, which is neat. You know, it's neat to see how we talked a lot about the cinematography in the show and how there's a lot of good poses and there's a lot of good scenes. And it's neat to see that there are people that are dedicated to doing that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a fun little trivia.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at how like prolific the crew was, considering that I don't honestly hear that much about this show.
Yeah,
it's like in a weird like gap in time where like for some reason, maybe it was just too early for westernization. I know it got dubbed somehow, but like
It got dubbed in 2006, so 4
Right.
years.
You weren't gonna see this on for kids. You weren't gonna. It's too adult for that. But it's also not gonna strike up the fancy of Western, like, essentially sign in and Jose equivalents either. People who are looking for like more adult shows as they got into Dragon Ball and that kind of thing early, and then grew up and are looking for mature quote unquote anime now. They're not going to pick up Tutu. So
it wasn't.
it's sad.
What?
It's sad that it just kind of, I don't know, seemingly has flown under the radar.
I mean, it's fairly
here.
popular in terms of like it's pretty influential. The people talk about it, but I think it's weird that it doesn't fit in this. It doesn't fit nearly. It feels like it should be a cult classic. It feels like it should have a lot more people. Oh yeah, this is definitely something that is influential to modern day anime, and I think it is. I think when people say like this influenced Madoka, I think I can see it. Mm-hmm. It never had a TV release in North America.
Yeah.
It was released as single DVD volumes. It seems like it was pretty hard to get a hold of. But Sentai Filmworks released the first time we got a Blu-ray was in 2018.
Wow.
So actually fairly recently. Yeah, right?
Whew.
It's funny because I know that I'm a little like iffy on the music because I'm not a big fan of using actual classical music.
Mm-hmm.
But the Anime News Network had a couple reviewers review it, and every time the music they were like A plus, and animation was like B plus, and art was C plus, which I disagree with. I think the art was really good, but yeah, it's weird because it didn't have as much love as I think it deserves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's how it goes. I wonder if it would be as special if it was constantly cited.
Yeah, I think it serves as a good like, hey, here's something you might have heard of but probably haven't seen, and it definitely shocked me.
Yeah, I'll say it is fun to discover, right? Like there are some shows where like if you find it all on your own, it feels kind of lonely. It's like someone watch this with me. But Tutu is one of those where, as we mentioned in our previous episode, it's really difficult to recommend because as much as it covers bases for me, it is totally it's on such a fine line that it doesn't really cater to anybody in some ways. And so I'm kind of okay with where it's at in like in a personalized sense. For like a moralistic sense, it's like, oh, this show should be more popular, but I don't know, it makes sense. I don't know.
Absolutely, I agree.
I do have another question.
Okay.
So we have talked about how like this show kind of does it for us in terms of production, and knowing that like we had like an all-star crew on this show, do you feel like adapting it to an actual stage play, and I mean the whole anime down to one play, maybe like in 3 acts, do you feel like it would still be able to get the same magic, or do you feel like you only get that in long-form anime?
I think this could be a good stage play. The blocking is already there. They literally have lighting built into the show. I mean, obviously, it's going to still require lots of, translations to stage. But I really think it could be fun. You can cut out a couple. You can cut out a lot of it, really. You don't need to do the Monster of the Week thing. You can really just make it the conflict with Fakir and Rue. You can cut out heart shards and just make it like, oh, it's the Raven's influence.
Or just do the gates or something. Yeah,
I think it could be good. And Would it be like super special? That's not up to me. I don't know how I would do it. I couldn't translate it, but I think it could. I think it would be fun to watch.
I totally forgot the parts where like they'll make a spotlight come on and they'll actually have the sound effect of like the shutters being pulled. That's good stuff. Makes even more sense with the metafiction that it's like, essentially that it is definitely constructed. The characters aren't really aware of it, but it's there. If you're someone who likes to finesse about the little details, then you'll enjoy this show. This is one of those that I really like to interpret off of. Like, I like to just, like, basically, go in circles on. I know this is not something that I don't think Grant finds as quite as entertaining as I do, but I can... When I was rewatching those final episodes, I was basically just like typing up my own little essay in my head about why this is an interesting message. I'm not going to repeat it all here, but I'll try to some spark notes to give you an idea of like why this kind of show really like preys on my instincts. I feel like this show has like an internal model set up of like how things work. And by the way, it's not just like metafiction shows. Like, I have these kind of theories about like Little Witch Academia, and who knows if it's actually intended. I don't care. I just like to pore over it. So within this story, it's a story about a man whose stories came true. So he used his own blood to write one last story about a machine that writes his stories for him, and then that creates a town. I love that that's a thing, and so therefore it's like this has to mean something, or I have to be able to pull something meaningful from this. That's probably a better way to describe it. This is going to end up being fragmented because I'm really honestly trying to like censor myself here, so this isn't super boring. But like, I feel like it has like this really interesting internal logic. A story being something that is productive. That like stories produce stories, whether you want them to or not. That sort of brings meaning to things like fan fiction and fan theories. Thereby, my own musings about the show itself. He's sort of like living in and out of his own story. Right, in terms of like publishing. So the more your story isn't your own, the more it's about influence and messaging and communication. It breaks down to writing, dance, and there's combat without words in some ways.
Fumio is the reason that Golden Crown Town was saved.
Princess Tutu, the characters are our world. They see and interpret them and shape story that just everybody gets. You don't just clone that information into your mind. Live the story and divides the characters in Princess Tutu who falls into that. Ahiru starts by living a life of inspiration. Right? She's just following what into your own hands. And so she and Fakir do that in different ways. Fakir through combat, and her through support the people she loves. Fakir does his writing to create a counter-narrative that goes against, they're not only characters, they are people in that sense. They have just as much power in the internal logic of the world as the author like you are bound to, but then you contextualize Muto and Rue, right? Muto and Rue are supposed to be the sacrificial. Then they become contextualized in a new way that their tragedy didn't define them. And so I think that's cool. I don't fucking know. This is my brain.
I think the thing about this show that makes it so special is that you can think about it, and it's no matter where you start and where you end are gonna be different.
Bro, I'm having thoughts. My brain cells are working.
It's like all right, let's focus on Ahiru. What does Ahiru mean? What does she do? What is her purpose? And then you'll end up with a different conclusion than if you started on Drosselmeyer or Fakir or Rue or Muto. And it becomes this kind of game where you're trying to find the deeper meaning of the show, and you'll find things, but you'll probably end up with something different every single time. So it's a fun show to theorize about. Yeah.
I think if there's one takeaway, it's that this show was capable of making me think like that. Because not every show is. I try, because I find this fun. But like, they gave me confidence that they might consider this kind of thinking, that maybe someone was like having these musings about the world and then sort of embodied it into a story. Is are my theories correct? God, no, probably not. Like, this is just my own, like, upon what I just said, like, of course not, because I think my own way and my brain can't be someone else's brain. But the show was essentially, it was true to itself enough that if the authors were to say, like, yeah, we had deeper ideas, I would totally believe them. And you don't get that often, I don't think.
This show is absolutely 100% worth your time if you just love to throw shit into the thought blender.
Yeah.
And I think that I know we recommend a lot of shows. Hey, watch it with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, watch this with your friends.
Man. Okay. So now that you got through all my wanton rambling, it's time to do some theoreticals.
Not
by
hypotheticals.
The way, hypotheticals. I fucked up. Fuck.
You fucked our one of our only consistent bits that we have on this podcast, and you go and fuck it up, Brantley.
Sorry, I'm possessed by the Raven's blood, so
you went to bastard mode.
Yeah, I'm not Brantley right now. I'm bastard. Sorry, I love the idea that someone's name is just bastard. The same way as like someone could be named Dick, It's
yeah.
Like, hi there. My name's Bastard. It's good to meet you. If your name is Bastard, you fucking rule. Go kill it. I forgot to mention themes. The theme of this show is take the high road. That's it. Moving on. Hypotheticals. Okay, Grant. Let's say, hypothetically, of course, that there's an anime that I will just like not shut up about, and you're at your wit's end. So just imagine it, right? I know this is
it's not hard. It's not easy. I can't think of any anime that you just never stop talking about ever for the 8 years that we've talked about anime together.
Okay, so how do you communicate to me that I need to move on? Do you do it with writing, with a dance,
combat,
or with sword? Okay, you want
combat. I don't even think it works. I have watched you. You know what? The way I actually did it is I watched it all with you. We've had a really busy week, and we watched all of we finished Evangelion within the past couple weeks, and then we watched End of Eva, and that's the anime that Brantley has never shut up about, and I liked it. It was fine. It was good. I understand its importance, but boy, and did it take me watching the entire show for Brantley to stop going, hey, you might like this.
Yeah, now we just have to get you through Danganronpa. And
I'm excited for that, though, because that one I can trash on and not hurt your feelings.
You don't hurt my feelings when you talk about Ava like that. Not that.
But I think in terms of the greater hypothetical, what do I use to solve conflict? I guess combat is the closest one. I don't actually go out and fight people, even though I say I'm gonna fight a lot of people. But I'm
literally last episode.
I'm pretty confrontational when it comes to things. I'm not like aggressive, but I'll talk to people. I'll be like, hey, I don't like that, or hey, don't do that. There's it's how I solve a lot of things is through one-on-one discussion. But if they throw the first punch, boy, I'm here for it.
Yeah. When Grant and I play Smash Bros, it's the same way. If I'm doing something really stupid, and he's catching on to my patterns, he doesn't say like, "Hey, Brantley, you're making yourself really vulnerable with that move. You should stop using it." He just kicks my ass.
What about you? What do you use to solve conflicts?
I want to say dance.
Because you dance around it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a better answer than what I came up with. But like when I have to do stuff that I'm like, so like when I teach, in order to break the tension, I'll do little like tiny like micro dance moves to throw everybody off. So like, I'll be shutting the doors to like the lecture hall, and I'll just kind of like do like some stupid like skippity jump move to land back at the lectern, and then just not, I won't say anything about it, and I'm just like legitimately trying to like essentially break the ice a little bit, or someone will ask me a question and I'll do like a little grapevine on my way over there. You know, when I hang out, I'm just like constantly doing some kind of like wiggling motion.
Dude, you've danced since I've known you.
Yep.
You've always bounced around and danced since I met you. So yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but when it comes to like conflict, that's in writing. Like I am very bad at like handling conflict in the moment. Like it's something that like I think is a trigger where I just like my body physiology feels wrong if I think I'm in a fight. Like legitimately, it's like I feel like I'm gonna pass out. So usually then it's like, okay, I have to deal with this in like a de-escalating email or text. I will not have this conversation in person, or I might accidentally black out. Yeah. So one or the other. Okay. Last question. Let's say Disney remakes Princess Tutu, but using their cartoon characters. So Donald Duck becomes our new Ahiru and transforms into a beautiful anime boy.
Bastard Mickey.
Bastard mouse. That's my question is who in personality then become the analogs for Muto, Rue, and Fakir?
I think Goofy's Fakir. Goofy's like, well, gosh, Ahiru, I don't want Mickey's heart shards to be broken again. I can't do Goofy.
Do you think he has it in him?
Yeah, dude. Goofy, like, gets deaded in Kingdom Hearts 2 for a couple seconds.
Yeah, but then he wakes up and he's like not even mad about it.
Yeah, but if you don't think Goofy will throw hands, then you fucking never seen an extremely Goofy movie.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, man. Goofy will and has killed. Mickey is Muto because, like, God, he's already an emotional as husk of a creature.
Yeah.
Now
what about Rue?
Because like
we're not gender locked here either. So
is it Pete?
I didn't think about Pete. Oh my god, give me a moment. Give me a moment to say. Oh my god. Oh my god, what would he say? He's like, now you keep your paws off Mickey Goof or something like.
God, I'm not even changing their outfits.
Muto's all mine!
Dude, he fits, man. He's a tsundere. He
Don't
actually
say
wants
things
to be
like that!
Pete from the Disney show.
You violent being! Why did I ask this? It's an awful idea.
This is a terrible question.
Only on familiar territory will you hear the words Pete is a tsundere.
I mean, you've seen Goofy movie.
Yeah.
You've played Kingdom Hearts. Just a little bit.
Oh my god. I hope someday you can meet Jim Cummings and ask him, hey, would you consider Pete a tsundere?
Hold on, I'm gonna email him on our...
No.
I think I can get an email. I think I
can
can
use our account for evil. Hey, you know what? You have to be confident though. You can't ask him like if Pete's a tsundere. You have to ask him what did he do to essentially like deliver Pete as a tsundere. You have to not back down. You have to insist that was what he was planning to do all along.
Yeah.
When you act out Pete for Disney, how do you get yourself in the tsundere mindset?
All right, so he has a Twitter. Hold on, I'm looking for him. Damn, I don't think I can access his email. All right, I can contact us.
No.
All right, familiar territory podcast.
I hate you.
Why? This is important. And if we get a response, it's gonna be one for the books.
I don't know if you're joking or not anymore, and I'm so scared. Oh my god.
Here we go. I'm gonna.
No.
I'm sending it.
Play the outro music. Play us out. Get us out of here. We're not your dads. Like the episode, subscribe, get us the fuck out.
But yeah, do you have anything else to say about Princess Tutu?
I think we've said everything that could be said.
Next, we're going to be doing an unfamiliar territory on Zombieland Saga. It's one of those shows that I watched as it was coming out. Brantley recently watched it. It's a personal favorite of mine. Brantley had a good time with it, and I think it leaves a lot to discuss. And season 2's coming out, so it's a good time to do that.
Yeah, we had to have a flip flop. I got to show Princess Tutu, and now Grant gets to show me Zombieland Saga, and we get to talk about both of them.
Yeah, so we'll be doing Zombieland Saga next. So if you enjoyed what you heard, you have some problems. Like, comment, and subscribe, or don't. We are not your dads, and I did send that email to Jim Cummings.
You fucker! We're dead. We're so dead. They're gonna send the mouse for us, man.
I'm stopping.